This is the film that was labeled a video nasty and banned in the UK. It's made by the filmmaker who lived through a world war, who created art that displayed a high level of mental destruction, and who made movies condemned by nations and governments alike.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is the movie that became one of the most disturbing cult classics ever made. This is Possession, a divisive film to say the least. This is my take on why this film is about the deconstruction of the human mind, and there will be some spoilers for those who haven't seen the movie. There's not too many films that do what Possession does. I was completely taken aback when I first watched this movie. It felt kind of like a roller coaster, and it looked like an exorcism, and it appeared as an explosion of chaos. This movie brings out the deepest, darkest parts of the human experience through grotesque and downright unholy mannerisms and expressions, specifically in the character of Anna, played by Isabelle Adjani, a French actress infamous for being overly emotional in her craft. But we'll touch more on that later. The story follows Mark, played by Sam Neill, and Anna, played by Isabelle Adjani, a couple in the midst of a brutal breakup. At first, it feels like a conventional romantic drama between two intense lovers who happen to fall out of love. But then things start turning up. The emotion of this film, the heartbeat that makes it breathe, is the raw pain of love lost. Specifically for Żuławski, since he was going through a separation at the time of writing this masterpiece. Possession was released in 1981 during a great transition period in the Cold War, and Żuławski shot in Berlin, with the Berlin Wall appearing in the background of many of the scenes, including the opening image, which is important. Żuławski had fled Poland after his previous film angered his government, and Possession was born from this experience. While tensions rose in the political arena, Żuławski was also going through a brutal divorce while writing the screenplay, which makes sense when you think about it. So he was flustered with all different kinds of emotions that he probably couldn't comprehend or process, all while creating a legendary work of art that will be admired for generations. So the film becomes this conjoined organism of political dissatisfaction and real-life heartbreak. The city is literally divided, and so are the characters. Their minds feel barricaded the same way Berlin was. 1980 was when Possession went into production, and 1980 was also when Berlin was one of the most politically charged places in the world, and was deep in the late Cold War era. Berlin was physically split between East and West Berlin by the Berlin Wall, but it was also emotionally split. And to those that aren't very familiar with European history, the Berlin Wall was built by East Germany so that their citizens couldn't flee to West Germany, for obvious reasons. East Germany was ran by fascists, and West Germany was a democratic state that acted as a safe haven. Of course, East Germany didn't want their labor citizens to flee because it would tank their economy. Anyways, this is related to Possession because Żuławski intentionally shot in West Berlin, and not just for aesthetics, and not just to have a cool artsy background. The dilapidated buildings, the constant surveillance, it was a perfect setting for the story about a marriage falling apart and decaying in front of our very eyes. Żuławski had just escaped Poland after authorities forced him to shut down his previous production, The Devil, 1972. Poland was being ran by communist authorities. Żuławski was pressured to flee, which caused him to be extremely frustrated and emotionally raw in his art, and expressive in his message. European cinema was evolving. It started to merge art house with horror, and this was mostly thanks to filmmakers like David Lynch and Dario Argento, pushing boundaries with their films Eraserhead and Suspiria, which both came out in 1977, 4 years prior to Possession. German cinema had the same effect and influence on Possession as well, due to directors like Herzog and Fassbender making great strides in taking film to a new place. Possession didn't fit in quite well anywhere and was unique and different from most films. That's why it's so hard to pin a specific genre to it. Is it psychological horror that most people say it is? A creature feature, which is what the US labeled it? Or is it a video nasty like the UK branded it? Is it strictly one of those things, or all of those things, or none of those things? In my opinion, it's really all of those things combined, which adds to the chaos of the film. Many people in France view this film as an artistic product of expressing the anxiety felt during the Cold War. Also, art that embodied trauma. It was also, dare I say, sort of punk. Żuławski and our main actress, Isabelle Adjani, were rebels with a cause. Żuławski was basically the king of politically persecuted filmmakers, and Isabelle Adjani was blacklisted for being an overly emotional and hard-to-work with actress. Adjani was already a major star in France, known for emotionally intense performances, but possession pushed her to the absolute limit, so much so that she later said it took years to recover from the role. Her subway tunnel breakdown scene became one of the most infamous moments in European cinema. She won Best Actress award at Cannes for the film, which helped her solidify her status as one of the most fearless performers in the world. As for our main actor, the iconic Sam Neill, this film came out early in Neill's career, long before Jurassic Park. Here, he plays the paranoid and tormented husband. It's a very different performance from the roles he became known for later, and you can see a young actor pushing boundaries in his own way. So, long story short, Żuławski was pushing his creativity to a new level through pain and anxiety he felt from his life. That's what art is about. Expressing yourself in a creative and innovative way, even if it's risky. Even if you end up becoming a political exile, artists like Żuławski need to express themselves in a way that has a balance of depth and sensitivity to its subject matter. Żuławski grew up in an environment shaped by war, displacement, and conflict. His family lived through World War II and the drastic alteration of Eastern European society and day-to-day life. That background created a filmmaker who felt at home in chaos. His relationships are a good example of the way the filmmaker felt: war and conflict, chaos and instability. He once said he didn't believe in calm cinema. To him, real life was already a battlefield, so filmmaking should be too. What a way to view art. Such an eloquent and masterfully spoken phrase. Hearing something like that opens your world up to a new way of interpreting life. I view the rest of his films with that unique perspective, looking at his characters closely with the idea that Żuławski uses his storytelling abilities to create visual and audible chaos. His debut, The Third Part of the Night, 1971, was inspired by his father's experience during World War II. The characters in the film unravel much like Possession, and this one acts like a sneak peek into the mind of Żuławski. In 1972, released The Devil. This is where Żuławski's intensity becomes real. Set during a historical uprising in Poland, it follows a man who witnesses society breaking down around him. The film was immediately banned by Polish authorities for being too brutal and too political. Żuławski's themes became clearer in this film, and it felt like he learned more about himself and his creative mind making this movie. On the Silver Globe was banned before completion. This was supposed to be Żuławski's greatest film, a large macro-scale over-the-top sci-fi epic based on a novel written by his great-uncle. But after years into production, the Polish government shut it down and destroyed everything to do with the movie. Their reason? It went against the government. Imagine years of creative energy thrown away overnight. The political censorship seriously crushed him and pushed him out of his home. Imagine that happening to you where you can't even do what you love. He fled to Western Europe as a heartbroken artist. You can feel that rawness in Possession. Żuławski poured all his pain into the movie. One way to look at Possession visually is through the camera work. He likes to use handheld shots and circles as characters, and this is what gives Possession that realism type of vibe. A sort of gritty realistic type of camera movement that makes the characters and their environment feel more real, and therefore, the stakes go up. The camera shakes, and rough movements from handheld camera work makes the chaotic nature of the film feel real, and also surreal in a way. And the surrealism is rooted in real pain. Żuławski wasn't a surrealist for aesthetics. When things get strange in his films, it's because the characters are reaching emotional states that language can't express. Every film that Żuławski makes basically becomes a stepping stone. Without every film he made before Possession, there would be no Possession at all. And that's why Possession doesn't feel like a normal movie. On the surface, Possession is a breakup movie. We can all agree. But to say that's the focus would be inaccurate. There's layers to it. Obsession, fear, anger, delusion, insanity, the sense of self and the loss of it. There's some common themes I see in this movie, and one of them could be displayed through Mark beginning as a rational husband with little to no red flags, but over time he starts to become more paranoid and more obsessed. It kind of feels a bit real if you've seen a couple fight before, whether that couple was close to you or not. We've all seen couples fight somewhere, but it went past just arguing here. Hiring a private investigator isn't what I would call normal. Another theme to follow here is how Berlin was divided as a city. There was a literal constructed obstacle placed between two parts of the same country. That divide alludes to the divide in the mind of these characters, something that presents itself over and over. It's the line that divides sanity and insanity. The movie not only cuts one thing into two pieces as in the Berlin Wall, it does the same with characters. There's Helen and Anna, and there's Mark and the doppelganger. Possession was one of those cutting-edge movies that was unvarnished and kinetic. The character of Isabelle Adjani playing as Anna jumps out of the screen right at you. Mark rocking maniacally in his chair, or when Anna oozes strange liquid from her body, are moments that feel alive. It allowed Europe to be seen as a place where movies that were anarchic could also deliver a level of coherency. Throughout the years, Possession has become an ultimate horror cult classic, a movie that has built up a large following of lovers and admirers. The movie influenced some great filmmakers like Lars von Trier, Darren Aronofsky, and Julia Ducournau, and here's why Possession still matters. Essentially, the movie's meaning is in the name, a story about possession, but being possessed could mean a multitude of things, and can take many forms. Possession of the mind or possession of the heart. On the surface, an actual demon or supernatural being would be the normal form of possession, but what's underneath that? The deeper meaning is what makes it unique. In the case of this film, we're talking about losing yourself, losing your sanctity and sanity, and losing your identity. Żuławski's film isn't trying to be polished or perfect or fully smooth around the edges. It gives a glimmer into something your average person won't see day to day. Things that are baneful often become the most interesting cinematic moments, and we see that often in the world of Żuławski. I definitely would recommend everyone to watch this movie for themselves, maybe more than once. It's a smart film that breaks norms, delivers historical realities, dramatizes for the screen, and enhances the viewer's scope of what can be considered going too far or too unnaturally unsettling.